Let's move on to the formula ribbon for a bit. Suppose I wanted to add up the exam values that I have listed in preparation for finding the mean. I can do that using auto sum. First, you click on the cell where you want the sum to appear, and that needs to be below the list of values in the same column. When you click on auto sum in the ribbon, which is right here, you will see that you have 5 different options. It will find the sum of the numeric data above the cell that you have clicked on. It will find the average. I really wish they used the term mean here, but since this goes out to the general public, not just to us math folks, they use average. It will count the number of numeric data cells and give you a count. For instance, in ours, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. That's what count numbers will do. It will find the maximum number in the data set or the minimum. For our purposes, we just want to add them up, so we're going to select sum. Notice when it does that, it gives us an actual formula for sum. It is telling us that we're going to be adding the numbers from A2 to A9. You can adjust that. If we did not want to include the 78 that was in A2, we could change the A2 to an A3, so you have a little bit of flexibility there. When we press enter, we have the sum of the numeric data from A2 to A5. It's important, though, to denote what that is. So next to it in a cell, I might want to type in the word sum so that when I come back to look at this later, I know that those data values added up to 682. If I wanted to find the mean of the values, I could put that underneath, click on the cell, and then go up to auto sum and ask it to find the average. Now notice when it does that, it's going all the way to A10, but A10 is not part of the numbers that we want to average, so I'm going to change that to an A9, press enter, and it is telling me that the mean of our particular data set is an 85. Again, I'm labeling off to the right so that I remember what these values are. Sometimes it's nice to put your data into column B so that you can enter your labels into column A, but that's a choice that you can make yourself. If you click on the formula builder icon, this is a very handy tool, you will see a list of formulas, the ones that you used most recently. So these are the ones that I've used in Excel most recently. But then if you scroll down about 2/3 of the way down this screen, you will see that you will come to a list of statistical formulas. For instance, the average that we had here. Notice when I click on that, it gives me a description of what average will do, plus it shows me how I have to enter the values. So if I want to find the average of a list of numbers, I could type in my equal sign, type in average, and then within the parentheses, I could type the individual cell locations for the numbers that I want to average, or I could select a range of values by highlighting the values that I would like to average. Now that one you can get to simply through auto sum, but if you look at something, if we keep going down here, and a lot of these are used in statistics, we get down to median. Remember that median is the middle value once the numbers are arranged from either ascending or descending order. And the syntax for this tells me that I want to, after my equal sign, it doesn't put that in, it assumes you know that. After the equal sign, I want to type in the word median, followed by the numbers that I want to take the median of. So let's try that one. I double-clicked on it, and notice when I did that, in the cell that was the next one down, what it did was it gave me the median of the values from A2 to A11. Now remember, A10 was the sum, A11 was the mean. I don't want to include those, so I'm going to go back up here and replace the 11 with a 9. Now I'm actually finding the median of my numbers. When I press enter, now I have a median that's actually correct, and I will label that so I don't forget what I was doing later. Suppose I wanted to perform the same operation on each of my values from A2 to A5. Although we haven't got there yet, when we work with standard deviation, this is something, if you were going to find the standard deviation by hand, this is something you'd like to be able to do. For instance, the first step in finding the standard deviation is to subtract the value in question and the mean. Remember, the mean for this particular data set was 85. So I would like to take 78, subtract 85, take 95, subtract 85, take 95, subtract 85, so forth and so on. So I'm going to put the formula to do that up here in the bar. So I'm going to ask it to take the value in question and subtract the mean, which is 85. When I do that, I'm going to get a negative value. And when we get to the part where we're talking about standard deviation, you'll see that this is the first step and you do get some negative values. I don't want to repeat that formula for all of my data values in my list. Now, this is a fairly short list, so I could do it pretty quickly. However, if I had a list of 75 exam grades, it could get tedious. So instead, I'm going to select the first cell where I've already put the formula, and I'm going to move over that cell until I see a black cross in the lower right-hand corner. Once I see that, I'm going to left-click and then drag my cursor down until I reach the bottom data value that I'm interested in. Once I do that, notice then that numerals appear in all of the cells. If I click on any one of those cells, look at what's happened. Instead of using the A2 that was up here in cell B2, as I go down the column, Excel adjusts for me. Now it's taking A3 minus 85, followed by A4 minus 85, A5 minus 85, and so forth and so on. So it's successfully subtracted the mean from all of my data values. If we were actually finding the standard deviation by hand, we would go on from here and do something else to this particular column of numbers. But that's not the purpose of this screencast. To copy information from one column or cell to another, all you have to do is click on the cell or range of cells that you want to copy. Say I wanted to copy these numbers for whatever reason. Then I could press Command C. Notice when I do that, it appears like there is a hyphenated line that's kind of pulsating. That means that I have copied that data. If I wanted to copy it into another column, all I have to do is click on a cell, select Command V, and lo and behold, those numbers reappear where I want them to. This is very valuable if you need to use the same data for more than one application. Just like in a table, if you find you suddenly need an additional row or column on your screen, you can insert or delete rows and columns. Back on the Home tab, look all the way over to the right-hand side. You see that you have the option to insert or delete rows. Suppose I wanted to insert a row between the 65 and the 682, which is the sum. You go to the cell below where you want the row inserted and highlight that. Then you can just go over to Insert, click on the icon, go down to Insert Cells, and I want to shift cells down, so it will do that. Now that was all well and good, but notice it just moved the numbers down, it didn't move the labels down. If I want to completely insert a row, I move over to number 10, which is the row that I want to insert above, and select the entire row. Then it's going to shift everything down for me. So when I go over to insert row, now I've got a space between my data and my information about that data, which looks a little nicer. So if you don't think of that initially, you can always go back and insert rows and columns. Here it is not an issue, but if you have a long column of data, it can be frustrating if you cannot see your headings. To freeze your heading in place, select the Layout tab, go all the way over to the right-hand side to the very last icon in the lower right-hand corner, and you will see the freeze frame. When you click on the down arrow, you can freeze specific panes. You can customize it if you want to. You can freeze the top row, or you can freeze the first column. Usually it's the top row or the first column that we want frozen. So if I freeze my top row, notice when I do that, a grayer line appears in between. That means if I scroll up or down, my headings will stay in place. One last thing before we close for today. The last hint for now is not to forget to name your pages. The default down here at the bottom is Sheet 1, Sheet 2, etc. It's not good practice to leave them that way. To name a sheet, just double-click on the bottom tab and then type in the title you want to give. Now your instructor will be able to find your problems. So if I go down here to Sheet 1 and double-click on that, you'll see that it's now highlighted in blue. I could type in grades and then just click off of that, and now my sheet has been labeled. This is nice because if you're doing more than one problem on the same Excel worksheet, which certainly is acceptable, by labeling the pages, your instructor will be able to find your problems. I hope this video was informative. Please let me know if you have any questions at all.